What's up guys, Maelstrom here. If you enjoyed then like and subscribe so I can keep on making these awesome videos for you guys. If you want the next part let me know down in the comments. When Team 7 Naruto, Natsumi and Sasuke reached the academy, they wasn't surprised to see the massed number of Genins in the grounds of the academy. They didn't give them much glance as they made their way directly toward the room 301 that assigned for the first test. As they walked up the stairs, they came across teams from various countries. They reached the second floor and saw a huge crowd of Genins gathered around the room labeled 301. But this is second floor, Natsumi whispered, looking toward the room labeled 301. Sasuke briefly activated his Sharingan. It's a Genjutsu, he said in a quiet tone and made a hand seal to dispel the illusion. Naruto quickly grabbed his hands, stopping him from doing it. Don't do anything, he said. Look at them. Don't you recognize them? Both Natsumi and Sasuke looked at what he was pointing. They saw two boys guarding the fake 301 room. They both had brown hair. The one on the left had his hanging down haphazardly around his face, framing his black eyes. The one on the right had spiky hair which framed his own black eyes and the bandages that were on his face. They looked like ordinary boys, nothing special about them. Natsumi cupped her chin in her hand, staring at them. They look familiar. They are our eternal gatekeepers, Izumo and Katatsu, Naruto said. Sasuke took a second look at the boys. Image of two boys overlapped by image of older versions of the same boys guarding the front village. They are here for weed out weak Genins, Naruto continued. Don't say anything. It's better if we don't draw attention to ourselves. They heard the sound of one person being knocked down at the front of the group. The throng of people seemed to part, allowing them to see the person who had been it. The boy had shiny black hair, round eyes with prominent lower eyelashes, and very thick eyebrows. He wore a skin-tight green jumpsuit, orange leg warmers, and a red leaf forehead protector as a belt. Don't you think it's too much? Natsumi asked her brother. Don't let him fool you. He's stronger than he looks, Naruto said, giving Natsumi a pointed stare. Come on, let's go. However, their presence didn't go unnoticed by a pair of white eyes. Hyuga boy wore a khaki shirt with dark brown shorts that matched his hair, which fell to the middle of his back. His forehead protector was wrapped around his forehead with the leaf symbol on it. The veins around his eyes bulged with chakra. The boy's white eyes narrowed at Naruto. Oh. As Team 7 are heading toward the classroom, they heard someone behind them saying, "Hey, guy with the blonde hair." The trio turned to see the same boy in the green leotard on a platform above them. Naruto raised an eyebrow as he was only blonde in the team. "What can I do for you?" he said. "Will you fight me, right here, right now?" the boy said with a determined look on his face. "A fight? Here and now?" Naruto asked. "This is against rule. Do you want to be disqualified even before the exam starts?" The boy jumped over the banister and landed about a dozen feet from them. "My name is Rock Lee." "You are Uzumaki Naruto, right?" "No, I am not." Naruto shook his head and then smirked. "I am just a clone." Sasuke was smiling. That look was very unfamiliar on his face. "Actually, we all are clones," Natsumi said. With that, the trio puffed out of experience. Lee stood there alone with his mouth gasping open in shock. Oh. Natsumi got feedback from clones she had left behind. "You were right, Naruto-ni-chan," she said, walking beside her brother. "That boy in the green jumpsuit was following us. His name is Rock Lee." "That's not important now," Naruto said, putting a full stop on that matter. "The important is the Chunin exam. It is divided into 3 stages. The first stage is a written test." Natsumi's mood dropped immediately. The written exam had been her worst subject in the academy. Naruto continued. "The second stage is a survivor test and the third and final stage is in one-on-one tournament battles." "How do you know all of this?" Sasuke asked finally. "It was supposed to be a secret, right? A ninja must be good at information gathering," Naruto said and looked at Natsumi out of the corner of his eye. "I hope she catches my hint and doesn't screw up," he thought. He had gotten tired of watching Kushina and Natsumi's faces each day. "Once I become a Chunin, I can move out from the team." Oh. The first part of exam went very well, Naruto thought himself. If only Natsumi hadn't opened her motor mouth. Naruto looked at all the remaining competition. Ibiki Morino, the commanding officer of the Konoha Torture and Interrogation Force and the first protector of exam, had seemed well set plan as he had played his little mind game against the Genins before asking the 10th question. But his ex-sister had decided to confront the proctor in hopes the man would stop his mind games and get on with the final questions. Her little outburst "and I'm going to be first femoral huckage" speech had installed courage in the hearts of others to stay put in their seats and pass the exam. A total of 30 teams along with Team 7 had passed the first part of the exam, which according to the second proctor was something unusual. Naruto sighed. They were standing in front of the closed gates at Practice Arena 44, or as the proctor so lovingly called it, Forest of Death, the place where the second test was going to be held. He could clearly see that most of the Chunin hopefuls were clearly scared by the creepiness of both the forest and the proctor of this exam. "Alright maggots, this is the place for your second test, Training Area 44. Or better known as the Forest of Death," the proctor for the second test said. She was tall, athletic and absolutely mean in appearance and behavior. Her name was Mitarashi Anko, a special Chunin. She determined to cut the number of the Chunin hopefuls in half. Naruto wasn't disturbed by her behavior, but he looked around for any potential challenge. His eyes fell on the Iowa girl. She had short, black hair and pupilless pink eyes. She wore a red-colored, raised collar garment that reached below her stomach region with a full-length sleeve on her left arm while sleeves missing, fishnet tights and a skirt over them. Kuretsuchi, the granddaughter of the third Tsuchikage. Naruto glanced at Kumo team, especially white-haired boy and red-haired girl. And students of 8-tailed Jinchuuriki are also here. White-haired Kumo boy's name was Omoi. He had dark skin, spike hair and dark eyes accentuated with eyelashes curving upwards from the corners. He wore a dark outfit consisting of an overlong shirt with a hood, with red bandage handguards. Kuma Kunoichi's name was Kurui. She also had dark skin with spiky hair like her teammate. Her eyes color were amber. She wore a long, short-sleeved dress with frilly edges complete with 2 simple yellow earrings, fishnet stockings, thigh-high boots with white soles. Both ninjas had a long sword on their back. Naruto leaned his head to the side as a kunai sailed past his head by millimeters. Anko appeared behind him with another under his chin. "Well, aren't you the brave one?" Anko started speaking, cupping the face of the fourth son with her hands and bringing her face closer to his. She pressed down the tip of his blade into the boy's chin until it started to draw blood. "It is kids like you that are quickly killed." "He spraying the red blood I love," she said as she licked the blood on his face. Several tick marks appeared on Ino's forehead. "Get the hell off my Naruto-kun," she shouted. "Troublesome women," Shikamaru muttered. Anko ignored the blonde girl, but she was mentally getting annoyed as she didn't get the desired response from the boy. He looked completely bored at her scaring tactics, but there was some relief when her eyes swept on the other contestants to find them scared by her little fun play. Naruto used his finger to push her kunai away and said, "Well, why don't you get on with the show? I'm bored already." "Spoil sport," Anko grumbled. She sensed someone creep on her from behind. On instinct, she activated the hidden kunai mechanism in her sleeves, which shot forth a kunai in her palms to block the incoming attack. "Here's your kunai." Anko heard the voice of the female who held her kunai by that elongated tongue of hers. "Why, thank you," she replied in mock happiness, as she pressed her kunai a little further on that disgustingly long tongue of the grass Nin. She didn't know why, but something about the grass Kunoichi was sending her bad vibes. She ignored it for the time being. "But you know, don't sneak up behind me unless you want to die." "I'm sorry." "Your kunai grazed my hair." I got excited, but I wanted to give it back, the grass Kunoichi said, as she offered the kunai to Anko. Anko swiped it from her, showing no disturbance at the large tongue. She pocketed the kunai and returned to stand in front of all Genins again. "Okay, your task is to enter this area and get another scroll from others. Remember, to pass you must complete this test with both scrolls, Heaven and Earth, with your teammates alive. And within 5 days, you have to show up at the central station. That is your finishing line, so to speak. Before you enter you will sign special forms that my colleagues are giving you," she said. "Why?" some Genins asked. "Why? To state that the Leaf or I aren't responsible for your death or injury that will surely occur in this test." Anko spoke gleefully, said Genin, plus many others paled. Oh, I thought we would meet some challenge by now, but all we met was a group of weak rain ninja that ran away when things got tough. What a letdown, Naruto thought. It had been about 3 hours since they had entered the forest and nothing had really happened, He was seriously starting to get bored. "What's the plan now, Naruto-ni-chan?" Natsumi asked as she stopped and looked her brother. Sasuke was also looking at the blonde. He hated to admit it, but Naruto was better plainer than him. "We have a heaven scroll, so we need the earth scroll to pass. We get down," Naruto shouted, but he was too late. A sudden massive gust of wind appeared out of nowhere, scattering the team from one another. Anko relaxed with a sigh as she took another bite of the stick of dango. Yum. Nothing better than dango and juice. For some reason, the taste of her favorite food had increased by 20% during the exams. While normally she would have wondered what could account for this, but she determined it had to do with the thoughts of all the genins probably engaging each other in the mortal combats. "Now, once I'm done eating, I guess I'll head to the tower." She took the last bite of dango. Since, in this program, the fast ones should only need about 24 hours. She tossed the empty stick into a nearby tree. Said tree was now decorated by what must have been almost 30 or 40 sticks. All of them were arranged into the leaf symbol. Leaf mark complete. She took the last sip of her bean soup and tossed the cup into a nearby trash can, and hopped to her feet. Suddenly, a cloud of smoke appeared in front of her. The woman saw a Chunin with glasses and a forehead protector tied on top of his head like a bandana. He looked worried about something, causing the woman to sigh in disgust. "What's with the look?" she asked. "Big trouble, Anko," the Chunin replied. "Already? What the hell could the problem be this soon?" "We've found dead bodies, 3 of them." "Dead bodies?" "Yes, please. It's easier to show. Come quickly." Anko followed the Chunin as he requested. He ended up leading her to a small graveyard in the outer parts of the leaf. 2 other Chunins were already there to examine the dead bodies that the one with glasses had informed Anko about. Anko put her index finger under her chin while taking thinking position. She looked at the bodies. Weird. She walked over for a closer look. After examining their paper and personal items, they seemed to be the hidden grass shinobis who were entered in the exam, but as you can see, one Chunin with said who had examined the dead bodies. He turned over the one body to show his face to Anko. "They have no faces. They are blank if they were melted off." Anko's eyes widened as the words of the Chunin came together in her mind. There's no mistaking it. This jutsu is his. Why is he in this exam? She thought about her old master who had betrayed her and the village. Her head jerked back and looked at the Chunin. "Show me the picture of these 3. "Oh, yes." The Chunin produced them at once and handed them to Anko. Anko gasped in horror as she saw the photo of the familiar creepy grass kunoichi she had met at the start of the second part of exam. He stole this face. So at that time he already. She clenched his fist. "This is bad, huh?" one Chunin said in confusion. Anko turned to look at the leaf Nien. "You guys, go report this to Hokage-sama. Send some Enbu captains to the Forest of Death," she ordered. "I'm going after them right now." The Chunin nodded and left Anko to do as told. Said woman jumped the fence into the forest, and began jumping from tree to tree. Her heart was racing in fear, anticipation, and anger. After being blown away by the massive wind, Natsumi found herself alone in the small clearing in the forest. What the hell?" Natsumi groaned, as she woke up in the clearing and held her head in pain. She guessed she might have hit the ground with her head. She wanted ice for her head. She slowly regained his senses, breathing deeply. Something wet trickled down on her hand. What is this?" Natsumi tried to shake the rotten sticky substance off her hand. She glanced over her shoulder into the darkness of the trees and saw 2 yellow slitted eyes. "Oh, shit. That attack almost caught me off guard," Naruto said to himself. He was floating in the shadow realm. "This shows, only power isn't enough, you need also experience." A space of void distorted before taking shape like several little sharks on legs with no eyes. They were shadow eaters, one of the tribes of the Honest. Jumping up and down, they made combination of squeaking, hissing, and chattering sounds. "Go and become my eyes and ears," he ordered them. Their noise increased. The blackness melted around them and they disappeared. After the large gust of wind scattered his team, Sasuke spent several minutes trying to find them. He was intercepted by 3 Kuza genin, 2 of whom left on the order of their leader. The strange grass kunoichi pulled out a scroll from her pouch and held it up for Sasuke to see. "You guys want this, right? An earth scroll sent you as the heaven scroll." As soon as she finished, the kunoichi brought the scroll to her mouth and she shoved it down her gullet right before his eyes. The last loyal Uchiha turned a light green and looked like he wanted to puke. "That is disgusting," he thought. "Now we can fight for these scrolls, with our lives on the line," the woman finished, as she released an intense killing intent. Sasuke gasped and fell to his knees, shaking and struggling to breathe as images as his deaths at the grass nin's hand came to his minds. He saw himself getting gutted by a long sword, getting brutally ripped apart, and all way of gruesome deaths. The images of death lasted several seconds before they disappeared, yet the feeling remained the same, gripping him hearts and preventing him from moving. This is not genjutsu, Sasuke thought. Her killing intent is so intense it showed images of my death. I've never felt something like this before, not even from that time with Zabuza. Well, it seems you can't move. A pity. I expected a challenge, the woman said with a frown. I guess I'll just get rid of you now. She pulled out a kunai and gave them a lazy toss toward the Uchiha. Come on, move. I have to move. Sasuke struggled to move the hand he had that held his kunai. Come on, move, move. At the very last moment, he managed to stab himself in the leg and leapt away. I see. So the prey managed to use pain to get rid of his fear. The strange kunoichi licked her lips. It seems the prey might be more interesting than first glance may seem. Sasuke stopped behind a tree when he felt they had gotten a safe distance away. He knelt on the branch, pulling the kunai out of his leg with a wince. His Sharingan eyes began spinning frantically as he looked around for any sign of the frightening woman. Sasuke, movie. There's a snake above you. A familiar voice of his teammate shouted. The raven-haired boy jumped off the branch just as the snake smashed it. Damn it. I was so frightened. I wasn't aware of my surroundings, he thought, and cursed himself for his lack of awareness. Natsumi landed beside him. Watch your surroundings carefully, Sasuke, she said. Natsumi grabbed kunai and shuriken and began flinging them at the snake, aiming at the head to kill it. Knowing it won't stop the snake, she and Sasuke quickly made some handshulls. They aimed at the snake, their mouths gaping wide. Wind release, great breakthrough. Fire style, dragon fire technique. The combination of wind and fire rushed out towards the snake in an incredible speed and force. Unable to avoid, the deadly blast reached it and created a violent tornado of fire, drowning the giant snake inside it. Natsumi and Sasuke were relieved as the snake hissed and began to fall. Then, to their horror, the scales on the snake began to crack and then revealed the grass kunoichi. The grass kunoichi came out, grinning at the genins widely. You two shouldn't relax even for a moment, the woman said, as she gave a bloodthirsty grin. In the presence of a predator, she began to slither across the tree branch, only stopped by the sound of something hard hitting wood. When the grass kunoichi looked down, she saw a kunai stuck onto the large branch she was standing on. At the same time, she also noticed that there was an exploding tag tied to the end of it, where it lit up and exploded. After the tag exploded, there was a large cloud of smoke. The mysterious genin jumped out of it, revealing that she was unarmed. But as soon as she did, she was suddenly sent flying down to the ground hard, after a sudden kick to the face. Natsumi and Sasuke looked up to the person who had attacked the mysterious enemy. They saw the person standing on a large branch and looking down at the bush-covered area, where he sent the mysterious assailant into. Ni-chan, Natsumi thought when she saw him. Naruto, Sasuke thought at the same time. Naruto jumped down and landed next to his teammates. Stay alert. He isn't down, he said. They suddenly heard the dark chuckling of the mysterious shinobi echo throughout the forest. Kukukukuku, you're smart like your father, Naruto-kun, the shinobi said, emerging out of the tree in front of them, completely unarmed. Cut the crap, Naruto said. I know who you are and what you want. The grass kunoichi laughed, peeling away the face to reveal very pale skin, golden eyes with slitted pupils. It was his true face. Well, it wasn't, but nobody had to know that. Natsumi paled seeing the familiar face. She slowly reached her hands into her pouch. Where is it? She thought. Orochimaru, Sasuke thought as he recognized the face of the legendary snake Sannin. It's well known that you're obsessed with learning every jutsu that exists, something that you likely picked up from your teacher. The Sharingan is the perfect ninja tool for learning and coping jutsu instantly, Naruto said, eyeing Orochimaru carefully. The tree's shadow stretched and ended at the feet of the snake Sannin. You're here for Sasuke, aren't you? You're right, Naruto-kun. Orochimaru chuckled in amusement. Now, I'd like to do what I came to do and I'll be on my way. He stared hungrily at Sasuke, who shivered. He now knew who he was facing. He seethed for a moment. He hated being so defenseless. I can't let you do that, Naruto interrupted the Sannin. Several black chains shoot out of the ground and formed a protective barrier around Team 7. Do you think your little barrier can stop me? Orochimaru said as he carefully observed the barrier made by the Uzumaki brat. The barrier made by the Uzumaki chakra chain was quite impregnable, but the brat was young and inexperienced to use its full potential. I think so, Naruto said, knowing that Orochimaru was underestimating him. You see, The first thing is that I need Sasuke alive to advance to the next stage of the exam. Sasuke gritted his teeth in anger. Naruto was, and always had been, an arrogant, self-centered bastard. Why should I care? Orochimaru said, half amused. He decided to hear this interesting person again. I assume that your thing will prove dangerous to Sasuke, maybe even disabling. Since this place is full of others who'd love to nail Sasuke for bragging rights if nothing else. You see where I'm going. Even if he lives through your experiment, he might not survive other competitors. Orochimaru pursed his bloodless lips in thought. He had to admit, his seal was a dangerous thing to apply on his chosen subjects. The blonde brat had a point, but not fully so. And what are other reasons? Naruto shrugged. I think that you should also consider what his older brother might decide to do if you mess with Sasuke. Sasuke snarled in an instant rage. Shut up, you know nothing about. He suddenly froze, unable to move or speak. What's going on? He felt some invisible force holding him. Orochimaru raised his eyebrows at the Uchiha's behavior. He also noticed the strange way the boy's shadow moved. He decided to investigate about it later. And why would Itachi-kun care what happens to his brother? You do know who is he? He asked. Think about it. Why did Itachi leave his brother alive when he got rid of his whole family first? I think he has a good reason, a very good reason. After all, a maniac who can kill a whole clan, his clan, a very powerful ninjas in cold blood, has to have a very strong reason to spare his weak brother. What are you doing, Ni-chan? Natsumi watched his brother talking to a S-rank missing nin. She then felt a familiar handle in her hand. Got it. Orochimaru found himself nodding in agreement. Indeed, you've proved your point. But it's changed nothing, he said. Not really, but it's brought us time, Naruto said as he watched Natsumi pull out a three-pointed kunai. Natsumi shouted, ready to throw the kunai. Stop there, snake freak. You one move and I will summon dad here. Nice move, brat, but it's still changed nothing. Orochimaru scoffed. Idiot, why can't she act like a ninja? Naruto sighed. Think about it, if the Hokage came here, we will disqualify from this exam. But you will also lose to see true potential of Sharingan, he said, carefully. When Orochimaru did nothing, he took that as a sign to explain himself. It wouldn't hurt to see more of Sasuke's skills, right? I mean, one lousy fight against you is hardly a measuring stick. Sasuke should have a chance against other opponents to prove his worth. Maybe. Orochimaru trailed off while considering possibilities. This was unfortunately a true and valid point, but he would be hard-pressed to mark the child later. This was a unique chance to do it. Who was he kidding? He was a Sannin and Konoha was once his playground. He could do it later. He just thought it was much nicer this way, to tempt the Uchiha more. But as he considered it further, he realized that Sasuke was ripe for taking. He just had to wait. The boy wanted power. He could see it in his eyes. No, Sasuke was already his. Also, if the threat of marking the last Uchiha disturbed Konoha's leaders and his old sensei, it would sufficient to distract them from his real reason for coming back. He liked it too. Still, he'd love to see how strong were Hokage's children. If that blasted child of Kazukage's was any indicator, well, that would just be lovely. He almost laughed aloud. Those fools in the Sand Village would get weaker, and Konoha would be weakened too. And he would have his prizes all to himself without any risks. Very well, Naruto-kun, you've made your case. I'll leave your teammate alone, for now, if only to amuse myself even more. Orochimaru vanished, leaving his trademark creepy chuckle echo behind. As soon as he was certain that Orochimaru was gone, Naruto removed the barrier. He spent a great deal of his concentration trying to sustain it and his shadow hold at the same time. Thanks God. Is he really gone? Natsumi gasped as she realized that the crazy man wasn't with them anymore. She was eyeing the surrounding forest for any signs of the snake freak. Relax. He's gone for now, Naruto said. Sasuke stood up and glared at him. You went too far, Naruto. I didn't need any protection. I can take care of my problems. Your problems? Naruto scoffed. If that guy had his way with you, you'd be screaming in pain right now and be very ill. And that would make it mine and Natsumi's problem. Besides, I didn't protect you. I just bought you some time to get protection. What do you mean by that? Natsumi asked, pocketing the kunai and making sure this time it would easy to grab. Don't you hear what I said? He is obsessed with Sharingan blood limits. He will come for Sasuke. I just managed to convince him to postpone it. Natsumi paled. That's insane. This is Konoha. One can just waltz in and do things to our ninja. Naruto shrugged. You are forgetting that Orochimaru was one of us too. and damn good at his job. He was almost chosen as the next fourth you know. We have to tell this to Dad, Natsumi said. We will tell Hokage-sama, Sasuke stated firmly. But in meantime we have to complete this exam. And Naruto, we will talk about some things you said. Ooh, what is this? Sasuke said, as he pointed to a large poster on the wall opposite of the entrance. If you lack heaven, seek wisdom, be ready. If you lack earth, run in the fields, seek advantage. And if you heaven and earth, you can succeed in even the most dangerous mission. These rules will guide a extreme. It only took a glance at the scroll for Naruto to understand that this had something to do with the two scrolls, as the words heaven and earth were highlighted on that large scroll. It's telling us to open the scrolls, he said, bringing out the scroll. In one swift motion he unfurled the scrolls. But the moment he opened the scroll, his eyes widened at the seal for a teleportation jutsu inscribed on the two scrolls with the kanji for person at the seal's center. Quickly placing the two scrolls on the ground, he and his teammates quickly jumped back, forming some distance between them and the scrolls. When the smokes cleared, Team 7 was greeted by Kakashi. Yo, he said in his usual lazy tone with his favorite orange book in his hand. Congratulations are in order of you passing the test. He looked at his watch and checked the time, within 24 hours. Well, about the meaning of the motto of the Chunin written by 3rd Hokage-sama. The heaven in the motto refers to human mind and the earth refers to human body. Kakashi-sensei, Natsumi said, cut in. Yes, Natsumi, Kakashi says, looking at his teacher's daughter. I need to talk to my dad. It's really urgent, Natsumi said. There was seriousness in her voice. Kakashi closed the book in an indication he knew how serious she was. What do you want to talk about? He asked. We met someone in the Forest of Death, Sasuke said. Who? Orochimaru. It was Naruto who answered his question. Naruto for the last 4 days stayed out of sight of every ninja present at the tower. He spent most of his time meditating and training in the Shadow Realm. A single day inside of the forest had changed his life. It had shown him some of his errors in his training. Also there was the matter of the snake Sannin in his mind. Minato had told them to not think about Orochimaru and concentrate on the Chunin exam. He would deal with the snake Sannin. He had also assigned Kakashi as Sasuke's bodyguard to protect him from the risk of kidnapping and other harmful situations. As for his information network, his Shadow Eaters had gathered a good amount of data on all the participating teams. Information on which of the teams had passed the exams to the skills they had, thus giving him an estimate of the possible skills of the teams who were left in the exams. This certainly would prove favorable to him. At present time, Naruto and rest of Team 7 were standing alongside the 8 teams that had passed the second test. Those 8 teams consisted of remaining 4 teams from Konoha and 1 from Kumo, Suna, Oto and Iwa each. In front of them stood the 3rd Hokage along with the 4th Hokage to his right and his student Jiraiya to his left and Kushina to the right of the 4th. They were accompanied by the proctors of the exams in the front row, while the second row was occupied by the Junin sensei of the teams that passed the second round. Congratulations on passing. Anko's voice could be heard through the speakers. Oh, I said I'd cut them in half, but I was expecting single digits. Anko thought as she eyed the teams. She certainly was impressed. Good. Your team passed too, Kakashi. Guy spoke as he kept his eyes fixed on the contestants. He was a dulled version Lee. They are good, but as long as my team is around, getting any further is impossible. Since from now on it's all about real ability, and I am certain that my team is more skilled than yours. His eyes then shifted towards Kakashi. Well, with youth there are sweet times and there are sour times, eh Kakashi? Huh? You say something, Guy? Kakashi asked with a look that clearly said that he didn't hear a thing. Guy looked away from Kakashi and cursed the masked Jun in a hip attitude. Gaara is unscathed. I hope Gaara stays to the orders passed on by Kazuki-sama. Baki thought as he eyed his team. He was a tall man with 2 distinctive, red markings on the right side of his face, only visible part of his head, with the rest being covered by his turban-like headgear. At least the 3 put their differences aside and passed this test. After all, it is important for both the future of Iwa. The black-haired Iwa Junin thought as he looked at his team with a proud look. Meanwhile the pale-skinned Oto Junin had his eyes fixed on genins which were not his own, them being Uchiha Sasuke, Yakushi, Kabuto and Naruto. For this many to make it this far and most of them being rookies. The third Hokage thought as his eyes traveled through all the genins that had passed. No wonder they all nominated them. He spoke the next words out loud enough for the people standing next to him to hear as looked at the junins behind him. True enough, Minato said as two shared the same thought as the third. It makes me remember the time when Minato took the exams. He too passed the exams on his first time, Jiraiya said as he remembered those days. All this while Kushina just stayed silent as she just had her eyes out for children. Hokage Sama will now explain the third test. Listen carefully, Anko shouted through the microphone for all present to hear. Naruto ignored Minato who was clarifying the true reasons of the exams. His eyes were fixed on the pale-skinned Oto Junin all time. The blonde looked down at the arena when the proctor of the third round made his appearance. Naruto had to raise an eyebrow at the man's appearance. He dressed in the standard Junin uniform and had a bandana-style headband. However, what caught his attention were the deep bags under his eyes as well as his general sickly look. Welcome, my name is Gecko Harite and I'm the proctor for the third stage of the Chunin exams. Harite spoke, coughing so much that many genins wondered if he was fit for duty. Unfortunately, it seems that the first and second stages of the Chunin exams were too easy and we now have too many candidates. Because this, we will be holding the preliminary matches. When the option of quitting was given, only one took it. The one to quit was Yakushi Kabuto, which didn't come as a surprise to Naruto. From the beginning, he had felt that there was something clearly going on with him. It seemed that even the proctor shared his viewpoint. The rules for this battle are simple. There are no rules. The match continues until one of you dies, out, or declares defeat. If you don't wish to get killed, quickly acknowledge your defeat. When the winner has been clearly established, I will jump in and stop the fight. If you continue to harm your opponent after the fight has declared, you may find yourself in the hospital, Harite said as he coughed then smiled at the group of genins. And the thing that will decide your future is that, he pointed to a, now revealed, big black screen. This electronic screen will randomly select two contestants to fight. Now, let's begin. Finally the preliminaries had started. Naruto stood on the balcony like upper level as he watched the first match going underway. Uchiha Sasuke vs Akato Yoi. From the get-go the match was one-sided with Sasuke dominating the fight. Next was the fight between Omoi vs Kintsuchi. Just like the previous match, this too was completely one-sided with Omoi's victory. The next fight was Kankuro vs Tsurugi Sumi. Unfortunately Kankuro's opponent wasn't able to differentiate between Kankuro and his puppet and that turned out to be his loss. This is getting boring, Naruto thought. He looked at the electronic board as it started to roll. He smirked and decided to play with it. His shadow servant would certainly come in handy for this work. The board flashed through names after the names of the many contestants, each name bringing a dinging sound before a loud beep signaled the names of contestants. Kuretsuchi from Iowa vs Tenten from Leaf. Soon Kuretsuchi and Tenten were standing in front of each other in the middle of the room. The fifth match of the preliminaries. Kuretsuchi against Tenten. Please step forward, Harite said. Yeah, go Tenten. Joe Lee yelled. Begin, Harite said and he vanished from the floor as he didn't want to get in between the fight. Jumping back, Tenten grabbed a kunai from her pouch and threw them at Kuretsuchi, but the Iwanian dodged the sharp projectile. Kuretsuchi went through several hand seals. Fire release, dragon fire technique. The head of a dragon made of fire came out of Kuretsuchi's mouth as it shot towards Tenten, but the weapon mistress managed to dodge it. Tenten, use the power of your youth, Lee yelled. That's the spirit. Keep cheering her on, Guy said. Leaf ninja are too noisy, Iwa Junin thought. Come on, Kuretsuchi-sen, show her what you're made of, Iwa boy shouted, cheering for his own teammate. He was large boy, with dark eyes and black hair that spikes out at the back from underneath his forehead protector. Iwa Junin sighed. Not, you too, Akatsuchi. Tenten then pulled out two scrolls from her pockets before putting them down on the floor and weaving a hand sign. Sashayu, she called out, and in a puff of smoke, two smoke dragons shot skyward while spiraling around each other before the smoke dispersed to reveal that the dragons were actually the scrolls. Tenten then jumped up into the air before hitting the seals on the scrolls to summon weapons. She threw weapons down towards Kuretsuchi before more weapons appeared as she touched the seals again. Earth style. Earth Dome Jutsu, Kuretsuchi called out. She was done with the hand sign sequence and slammed her arms down on the floor. A half dome appeared over her and blocked all of the weapons. After the barrage was over, she quickly weaved a series of hand signs before jumping out of her hiding place. Lava style. quicklime jutsu. She called out the name of her favorite technique before spitting a bullet of quicklime at Tenten's feet, sticking her to the ground. "What's it?" Ino asked, as she had never saw or heard technique like this before. "Troublesome woman, it is a lava release," Shikamaru said. "Lava release?" Ino was still confused. "What is it?" Asuma Sensei. Asuma Sarutobi, son of the third Hokage, was a tall man, with brown eyes, olive skin, short black spiky hair, and a beard. He smoked his cigarette as he stood next to his team. "Ino, it's a bloodline limit, a combination of fire and earth," he explained. "You mean like Sharingan?" "Yes, like Uchiha Sharingan. Water style, surface slicer." Kuretsuchi then spat a large volume of water at the quicklime, causing it to harden. "I'm not done yet. Not as long as I can still move my arms," Tenten said. She was a Leafnium and Gai's student. She refused to give up. Tenten pulled out several kunai and shuriken and threw them at the Iwanin. However, Kuretsuchi dodged the weapons before doing another lava technique followed by a water technique to make sure that Tenten wouldn't be able to use her arms. Since Tenten isn't able to fight back, the winner is Kuretsuchi, Harid announced. "Impossible," Lee said. "Yeah, way to go, Kuretsuchi." Akatsuchi yelled. "Let's weed it out week 1 first," Naruto thought. The next match was between Akumo Genin and Nara Shikamaru. It was the most laziest yet strategic match. With the use of the surroundings, Naruto watched the Nara score a simple yet a very clever victory even after being at the disadvantage of his enemy already knowing his jutsu. Looking around, he found that it was not just him, but almost all Junins, proctors, cages and some genins also seemed impressed by the victory. The next match was Temari against Zaku Abumi. This was again a disappointed match as Zaku from the Sound Village was overconfident about his powers, especially the ones coming from his arms. Harid appeared next to Temari. "Winner is Temari from the sand," he said before turning to Zaku's corpse. "And the 10 minutes break to clean all this mess. Now, who I put with whom?" Naruto took a moment to study the kunoichi from the Hidden Rock village. She had the brown hair that was typical of the population of their continent and gray eyes. She wore a battle kimono that stopped at her knees and was cut to leave her shoulders bare. The next match decided by the electronic board pitted Suzumobaki against Shinobi. "If I am not mistaken, isn't that Suzumobaki girl of the Kamizuru clan of Iwagakure?" Jiraiya asked to the people standing next to him. "Yes," the third replied. "This doesn't look good. Many battles with Konoha were often led by the Kamizuru clan. When Konoha's Abraham clan proved the perfect counters to the Kamizuru, their status within the village declined," Minato said. "I hope she doesn't take it personally," Kushina said, looking at Suzumobaki. The Iwa girl's eyes were currently narrowed in a glare at her opponent as they walked down the stairs. Shino meanwhile walked down the stairs with his head bent in thought. Any clues to what he was thinking were hidden by the shades he wore. Naruto and the other Junin in the room could hear his code buzzing as the destruction beetles that were inside the Abraham's body prepared themselves for battle. Once the two were in front of him, Harid said, "Shinobi versus Suzumobaki Kamizuri. Begin." Chopping his hand down, he jumped away. Harid was barely 2 feet away before Suzumobaki tossed out her arm and 3 shuriken flew toward Shino with 5 bees right on their tail. Shino retaliated by lifting his arms and sent a small group of bugs out in front of him which formed a wall stopping the shuriken before 10 of the beetles broke off from the wall. Suzu made 4 hand signs, calling a large swarm of bees with what looked like miniature paper bombs. The swarm rushed towards the wall of insects, slicing through insects in front of it before they all slammed into the wall and exploded with enough force to slightly shake the room they were in. Suzume smirked as the smoke cleared and revealed Shino's body on the floor badly burnt and bleeding. Her smirk quickly disappeared though as she felt a 2 kunai pressing up against her throat and a voice behind her said, "Do you yield?" Suzume turned her head to see another Shino step out of the shadows cast by the balcony. "How?" she asked, and Shino pointed back to where the body was. The blood was gone and the body burst into insects. Insect clone and genjutsu combination. "I was never actually in front of you," Shino said. Suzume let out a curse before she sighed and said, "Fine, I yield." "Winner, Shinobi," Harid called before pushing chakra into the board seal again. The insect clones holding his opponent broke apart and went back inside Shino's code as he walked away. The screen beeped and Harid looked back before calling out, "Ino Yamanaka, Karui, you two are up. Naruto already knew how this was going to end. Sadly, Ino did not see this and believed this fight was a perfect chance to prove herself to Naruto and show him that she was a strong kunoichi. She even asked him to watch her fight. As soon as she left, Naruto turned to look over at her sensei. Asuma-sensei, I suggest you get ready to go down there and bring Ino up, since this battle won't last very long. Aren't you being a little harsh, Naruto? I know Ino isn't exactly on par with some of the other girls here, Asuma said, but she has made some good improvements over the past few months. Let's see, Asuma-sensei. Let's see. As Naruto predicted, the fight did not last very long. Karui wasted no time taking down her opponent. In an impressive feat of skill and speed, Karui crossed the distance between them in under a few seconds. She then delivered a strong punch to the face, followed by an equally strong knee to the gut and then a sharp chop the back of the neck to knock Ino out. Once Karui was declared the winner, Asuma jumped down to his fallen student and picked her up. He brought her back to the catwalk. After Karui had rejoined her team, the screen began to go through the remaining genin names. A few seconds later, the screen stopped at Gaara and Dosu Kinata. This match had ended in a blink of an eye, as it seemed Gaara had no desire to play with Dosu. Seeing that the moment Haruto called the match to begin, Dosu was caught by the sand from the sand gourd on Gaara's back and engulfed the Oto Nin's body. A large intake of breath was heard at the speed which Gaara had captured his opponent, and by the eyes of 3 of the Konoha genins, it was clear they knew what was coming next. Luckily for all present, they were spared from the sight of Gaara crushing his opponent using the sand burial, as he only used his sand to crush the Oto Nin enough to knock him unconscious with heavy injuries which would certainly destroy his career. If the match of Gaara was swift and destructive, the next match could be considered to be swift and graceful. The match pitted Hyuga Neji against Akimeki Choji. The chubby genin had no desire to fight the Hyuga, whose eyes seemed to be boring holes in him. It was only after the persuasion of Asuma and also the promise of giving him a full-course barbecue dinner for free, he decided to fight. Unluckily for the chubby genin, before he could even use his clan's trademark jutsu, the Hyuga acted swiftly and gracefully, attacking with palm strikes, knocking the chubby genin out. The next match pitted Inuzuka Kiba of Kono Hagakure against Hikatsuchi of Iwagakure. It started good with the Inuzuka trying to outsmart his opponent by making use of his heightened smell senses and usage of smoke bombs. But the plan was futile, as none of the strikes of the Inuzuka made a strong impact on Hikatsuchi, who was showing a great deal of resilience and sturdy body. At some point in the match, the Inuzuka lost to his bestial instincts and the match became a competition of strength. Unfortunately for the Inuzuka, his strongest jutsu beast human body technique secret art, Fang Passing Fang, was unable to penetrate the golem of Akatsuchi, and neither could the Inuzuka stand a punch from the golem. 11 matches were over and 11 winners were already declared. Only 4 genins were left: Uzumaki Natsumi, Hyuga Hinata, Rock Lee and Naruto. Let's see what you can do against your best friend, Natsumi, Naruto thought. Finally, the electronic board declared the opponents of the second last match of the preliminaries, as it pitted 2 best friends against each other: Namikaze Uzumaki Natsumi versus Hyuga Hinata. Meanwhile, Kurenai watched her student with a bit of concern, as her student was going to face her best friend. She was confident in her student's skills, but her opponent was Natsumi Uzumaki, daughter of the 4th Hokage and Red Hot Habanero. She was a powerhouse, and Hinata specialized in close-range combat. Kakashi also closed his book, as he wanted to watch both second last and last fight. So the 4th Hokage's daughter is going to face Hyuga Eris, Iwa Junin thought. This isn't going to easy fight for Natsumi, Minato said. Kushina nodded. Yes, Hinata-chan is her best friend. As this match was called to begin by Haruto, a lot of eyes were fixed on the result of the match. Most present eyes were focused on the 4th daughter to see her skills. One Hyuga Neji looked down at her cousin Hinata with a small scowl on his face as he watched the fight about to go underway. I don't wish to fight you, Natsumi, Hinata said, as she had no desire to fight her best friend. Neither do I want to, Hinata, but we have to see who proceeds further in the competition, Natsumi replied as she got in a fighting stance. Begin, Haruto called out. The moment Haruto called out for the match to begin, Hinata's hands quickly flipped through some seals as she activated the Byakugan and slid into the basic gentle fist stance. Natsumi jumped back. As soon as her feet touched ground, she made 4 clones. The clones rushed at high speed towards Hinata, engaging her in hand-to-hand fight. It was a well-known fact that the Hyuga clan, which highly relied on the gentle fist and close-quarters fighting, were easy targets for them. Real Natsumi pulled out shurikens and threw them at Hinata. The Hyuga heiress blasted the clones with a palm strike filled with chakra and jumped back to avoid being hit by the shurikens. Natsumi knew that Byakugan was her best friend's advantage. It was regarded as one of the 3 great Dojutsu. It gave its user near 360 field of vision around themselves. It could see chakra to a greater degree than the Sharingan. Its ability to see chakra was acute enough to see the chakra pathway system within a target body and the 361 tenketsu that ran along it. Being a tailed beast container and an Uzumaki were her advantage. Natsumi knew she had more chakra than her parents and any other ninjas in the Leaf Village. She was going to use it. After all, she was the powerhouse in the Team 7. Multiple shadow clone jutsu. Oh, holy Anko! Kurenai shouted, stopping her friend from saying an appropriate word. Dai-chan, just look at there, just how much chakra that girl has. Anko said, wide eyes. She wasn't only, everyone in the exam, except you, were thinking the same thing. They were shocked seeing Natsumi had filled all fighting arena with her clones. The Yellow Flash's daughter is a chakra monster, Iwa Junin thought. He looked at his students, who were not better conditioned than him. Kuretsuchi's mouth was wide open in shock. The San siblings and their teacher were all shocked at the sight. They didn't know the daughter of the 4th had that much chakra. As for Kumo Genin, their reaction was the same as everyone. Whoa, Choji said. A bag of chips fell from his hand. Troublesome, Shikamaru said. Shadow clone jutsu was forbidden because it divides your chakra into equal parts among the clones and you couldn't recover that chakra. Even a Junin had trouble maintaining more than 4 clones. Making hundreds was unreal. Just how much chakra Natsumi has? At least 4 times greater than her parents, Kakashi says, shocking all Genins. It also has a disadvantage, Naruto said, looking at the arena filled with Natsumi. What do you mean, Naruto-kun? Ino asked. Due to having a massive chakra, Natsumi has a horrible chakra control, Naruto said. She cannot do a normal clone jutsu or cast any genjutsu. Don't you think she had overdone it? Jiraiya said as he looked at his goddaughter's duplicates, trying to find real one in them. Nah, I don't think so, Kushina said. But it's a genius plan. Shadow clones are visually identical and possess the same chakra as the original. Not even Byakugan can find the real Natsumi, the 3rd Hokage said. Oh, where is real Natsumi? They all have the same amount of chakra as the original, Hinata thought as she knew she had to find her bestie. If she didn't do anything soon, she would lose. She saw all Natsumi pull their kunai out, ready to attack. Hinata knew that it was now or never. All her hard work, days and months of training her chakra control to finding something that would suit her. Only a few people knew about the jutsu she had developed and they were all here. This was her time to make them proud of her and show that she was not a damsel in distress. I know I haven't used that move in actual combat yet, but now I have to use it here against my best friend who helped me to develop it, she thought as she closed her eyes to mold her chakra to perform her jutsu. Her eyes opened with her Byakugan flaring with intense determination. Protection of the 8 trigrams 64 palms. Her hands moved fast enough to become blur for most of the people in the arena as her chakra created sharp chakra blades. Counting her natural flexibility, she was able to strike most of the clones with sharp chakra needle, cutting them in half. Those had approached her were destroyed by the almost invisible dome of chakra formed around her by the sharp chakra blades of her jutsu. She could easily see the shock of most of the people around, but at this moment she was completely focused on her opponent. Oh, that was a very youthful jutsu, Guy said to his fellow Junins as he truly was awed by the Hyuga heiresses changing the gentle fist to fit her body structure. He always believed that every individual had his own style of fighting and shouldn't be restricting himself to something because it was tradition. Indeed, Asuma replied as he too was awed by the jutsu. Meanwhile, the jaws of Ino, Choji and Shikamaru were hanging a bit loose as they watched the performance and couldn't help but be awed by the performance of the Hyuga heiress, especially Ino, who had lost so easily. Yup, you showed them Hinata. Kiba cheered for his teammate. A powerful yet graceful display, Shino commented. Both her teammates were also surprised seeing that they didn't know much about the secret jutsu Hinata had developed during her training with Natsumi and Kushina. Meanwhile, Neji was seething with anger on the inside as he watched Hinata perform her new technique. He just couldn't digest the fact that the loser of the clan was able to do something like it. Now that was something completely new and definitely powerful. Jiraiya commented, but it means Natsumi is in big trouble. As soon as Hinata destroyed the threat of the clones surrounding her, she charged at the last Natsumi, not giving her the time to regain herself. "You're now in my field of divination," she announced, preparing for her next attack. 8 trigrams 64 palms. Hinata shouted as she reached and started striking her friend's Tenketsus. 2 palms, 4 palms, 8 palms. All of her hits were making contact. 16 palms. More of the Hyuga's attacks were hitting their targets as the audience just looked on in shock at the event playing before them. Naruto watched the scene transpiring in front of her. 32 palms. More and more strikes were being made with cutting-edge precision. 64 palms. Boom. A large and loud explosion occurred the moment Hinata made his 64th hit on Natsumi, who had suddenly exploded on her. Everyone in the audience looked at the shocking turn of events that just happened out of nowhere. Oh, finally you used your brain, Natsumi, Naruto thought as he saw the explosion sent Hinata hurling towards the side walls of the arena. "It's a shadow clone explosion jutsu," Kakashi said. Kurenai looked down at the arena as she gripped the railing with her hands. She was worried about her student. Her student had everything under control. She was winning, but in a split second, everything changed. Oh, Hinata grunted in pain after hitting the wall. She didn't get much time to recollect herself as she felt a kunai tip pressed to her neck. But how? Natsumi pointed at the hole she had made. "Like most people, you're focused on what is happening around you and not what was happening underneath you, which was why I was able to sneak up on you." To quote Kakashi-sensei, "A shinobi must always look underneath," she replied. Although she knew what she just said wasn't exactly what Kakashi meant, it still fitted with what she was saying. "I forfeit," Hinata said with slumped shoulders. Her best jutsu had been foiled and she knew that fighting any longer was not going to work against Natsumi. "The winner is Uzumaki Natsumi," Hari declared, which followed by shouts of congratulations from the balcony. Oh, sigh, that was some intelligent thinking," Jiraiya said. "It certainly was," Sarutobi Hiruzen commented. "It was a good match. Natsumi and Hinata did good job," Minato said. "Yes, it was," Kushina said with a big smile on her face. "All that aside, it is time for the last match to start," Sarutobi said as he watched the screen showing names of remaining 2 contestants. "Yosh, I am all fired up. Now at last I can face a worthy opponent and prove that I have become a splendid ninja," Lee declared excitedly. "Well spoken, Lee, but let me give you some good advice. Do not underestimate your opponent," Guy said. "Yosh, that is good advice, Guy-sensei. I'll write it down," Lee replied as he took out a pad and pencil and began to write down. "Don't write it down. You won't have time to read it when you're battling," Guy scolded. "I see your good advice," Lee said, where he continued to write down what Guy was telling him. Naturally, this caused everyone to have large sweat drops on the back of their heads and look at the two with disbelieving looks. They didn't notice, Kakashi thought, who fought the urge to slap his forehead. Oh. Before we begin, Naruto-kun, I wish to say that I am very glad that I can fight you so early into the exam," Lee said as he fell into a fighting stance. "I suggest that you give this fight your all, as I intend to give you my very best," Naruto said, as he fell into his own fighting stance. "I would have it no other way," Lee replied with a smile. Oh, well, this will certainly be an interesting match," Kakashi said. He knew that Naruto was quite capable ninja, but even still he could not help but wonder if Naruto's hand-hand skill would match Lee's, since he knew that from training under Guy, Lee would be highly proficient in it. Meanwhile, Iwa Nins and Kumo Nins Genins and the Junin had their eyes focused on the 4th sun. On the other side, all the eyes of the Sunanin silently waited for the match to start. "Kurtsuchi, Akatsuchi, keep yours peeled for every single detail on this match," the Iwa Junin ordered to his Genins. Oh. Once both boys were ready, Hait, who was standing between them, raised his hand and lowered it while saying, "Now let the final match of the preliminaries begin." As soon as Harit yelled begin, Lee raced towards Naruto at top speed and did a mid-air spinning kick while crying "Leave whirlwind." Naruto brought up both his arms and held his ground while blocking the kick. He then pushed Lee away, causing the bowl-cut boy to flip back and land a few feet back. Soon after, though, Lee attacked again. Lee was astounded by his opponent. He not only saw through the feint attack of Leaf Whirlwind, but also blocked the continuous barrage of kicks. He had even found opening into his attack and planted an elbow and a haymaker which were really powerful. But one thing had been ascertained in the span of the few seconds: Naruto was a very powerful opponent. With that thought in mind, he charged his opponent with a barrage of powerful punches and kicks. It was painfully obvious to all that whatever Lee tried, Naruto had him outmatched. The blonde was able to block, parry any punch or kick the bushy brow Kaguya Genin threw at him, at any angle. None of the taijutsu endeavors of Lee bore any effect as nothing had yet connected with Naruto. Meanwhile, the few strikes Naruto had unleashed had successfully found their target. Why are they still using only taijutsu? Ino spoke up. Lee can't use ninjutsu. Guy spoke up, shocking Genins. Through the minute of exchange of fists between him and his opponent, Naruto learned one thing, and that was his opponent was a restless attacker. It complemented the taijutsu style he used, which seemed to be centered on fast and hard strikes. It was the exact opposite of gentle fist. The only downfall to the style he could see was that the style would be useless against someone who was faster than the user and had quick body reactions. To Lee, he was the worst opponent, because absorbing the Oni King had not only given him the shadow abilities but also superhuman physique. Kaguya Great Whirlwind. Lee shouted and charged at Naruto to deliver a barrage of kicks. It was clear that Lee was going to pull a stronger and ferocious version of his previous move, Kaguya Whirlwind. The name suggested it. Most impressive, Guy commented as he watched his student and Naruto fight. He was quite impressed with Naruto's speed and skill as well as his reactions to Lee's moves, showing he had been trained well in hand-to-hand fighting. Do you think you can stand against him, Kuretsuchi? Akatsuchi asked. Indeed I can, Kuretsuchi replied in a hearty tone as she was proud of her skill. That will have to wait and watch. I don't think that is the extent of the Yellow Flash's sun abilities, the Iwajunin said, making Kuretsuchi to scowl as she already was aware of it. Gaara's eyes were simply locked on Naruto and his bloodlust was increasing, scaring his siblings and his teacher. Mother wants your blood. Whatever he tried, nothing seemed to be working on his opponent. Lee had pushed himself to the fastest he could go and try to hit from the blind spot, and yet it didn't work. He only had two options and both had some rules set behind by Guy Sensei which he didn't wish to break. His mind tried to process the possibility of ways he could attack. His line of thoughts was suddenly interrupted by the shout from Guy Sensei. Lee, take them off. He turned towards Guy Sensei to wonder was he joking, but to his immense surprise he seemed completely serious. But it couldn't be true, the rules. But, Guy Sensei, I thought that was only permitted when protecting very important people, Lee said in surprise. It's alright, I'll allow it, Guy said with a good guy pose. He couldn't believe it. Guy Sensei wanted him to remove them. With them removed he knew that his speed would increase by a huge margin, and it was clear that he needed that kind of speed to go against his current opponent. The smile on his face could not be stretched any longer. He slid down the leg warmers to take them off. There they were, strapped to his legs, weights, the things he used to go extreme with his taijutsu training. Alright, I can move freely now, he shouted as he removed the weights from his legs. Weights was the collective questioning words of most of the Genins present. What an old-style training method, Guy Kakashi thought as he looked onto the mini guy removing the weights from his legs. But what happened next took everyone by surprise and shock. As the place where the weight collided with the ground, it formed two large craters. This was crazy. Isn't that a bit too much? Natsumi wondered, seeing the impact of the weights. Leave it to Guy to take things to the extreme, the ex-Hokage said, seeing the impact of the weights. Mini Guy certainly will need that extra boost if he wants to go toe-on-toe with Naruto, Jiraiya said. Meanwhile, Kushina and Minato just silently watched as their eyes stayed focused on Naruto. He had achieved so much without their help. They couldn't help but wonder, if they had been there for him, things would have been different or the same. This is interesting, Naruto thought as he saw Guy give Lee the signal to go. He ran toward Naruto. Hold on, Lee, Naruto said, holding his left hand up. The mini guy stopped in his track. What? He asked, confused. You've shredded your weights, Lee. Give me time, so I can do mine, Naruto said and smirked. He did a single hand seal release. Level 1. Thin little lines of a glowing red light appeared all over his skin for a few seconds before disappearing. What kind of jutsu is this, Kakashi sensei? Sasuke asked, looking at strange marking on Naruto's skin. That's not jutsu, Sasuke, Kakashi said. Those are weighing seals, the third Hokage said. Not just weighing seals. There are chakra-suppressing seals as well, Kushina said, looking at the seal making on Naruto's body. She was a Uzumaki. Finjutsu was in her blood. After hearing Kakashi's explanation, Sasuke and the other Genin eyes widened in surprise. as Naruto was already pretty fast. So he uses the same kind of method that Lee uses, but instead of regular weights he uses weight seals. Neji thought with interest. Oh. Naruto flexed his fingers and rolled his shoulders, cracking his neck. A silvery black glowing outline solidified around him. He felt like a huge weight had been lifted off his body. I feel much better now, he said before looking at Lee. Let's dance, shall we? With the weights gone, the speed of Mini Guy had drastically increased where he was only a blur to most of the genins present, but Naruto could easily track his movement. He moved at the speed almost equivalent to that of Lee as he engaged the guy's student in a clash of fists in which neither of them was willing to give anyone any inch in the clash. Oh, this is crazy, Natsumi shouted, watching the high-speed taijutsu fight between her brother and Lee in a bit of awe. Both of them are so fast, Ino commented, sounding completely odd. Wow, their attacks are so fast my eyes can barely keep up, Kiba commented, with the genins agreeing with him. They are equal in speeds, Hinata added. It seems Naruto is enjoying himself, Sasuke said with his Sharingan active. What Sasuke is said is indeed true. It is clear that even now Naruto is still on the front foot, Kakashi thought. He wasn't the only one with a similar train of thoughts as it was on the minds of all Junins. What about now, Kuretsuchi? Akatsuchi asked. I can, Kuretsuchi answered with a bit of uncertainty in her voice as she too could see that the blonde was enjoying himself. Oh, Naruto was enjoying this. This was real fun, exchanging punches and kicks with a boy around his age, not with his clones or Zetsu, who moved almost as fast as his normal speed. If he wanted he could jutsu, but he decided to not use. The reason was the look in the eyes. It was clear to him that the weights were not the only trump card Lee had. There certainly was something more, though to all it may look like they were equal in speed and he was also able to plant some hits on him, but Lee understood better. His opponent was still superior than him both in speed and power. At this moment only one option was left to him, that was to break the rules set by Guy Sensei on those forbidden techniques. He understood that directly using that jutsu wasn't an option at this moment. His only option was the lotus. Lee's eyes turned towards the Guy Sensei's direction where he silently asked for the permission to use that jutsu, and by the look on the face of Guy Sensei, it seemed he too was thinking the same thing. He couldn't help the large smile that erupted on his face as he received the permission. He failed to notice the predatory grin on his opponent's face as he started unrolling his bandages. Once the preparations were ready for him to execute the jutsu, he charged at his opponent with renewed vigor. Lee didn't charge directly at his opponent. There was a possibility Naruto might dodge his attack as Naruto had greater speed and better reaction time. It was something he didn't want to happen since the wrench is a double-edged sword. With that thought in mind, Lee ran circles around his opponent, who silently observed his movements. At a sudden movement in between him running circles around his opponent, he charged at Naruto and was able to successfully plant a vicious kick on his jaws, kicking the boy upwards. Using the shadow of the dancing leaf, he appeared directly behind his opponent, who was ascending further upwards. But what happened next completely took him by surprise. He was about to wrap Naruto with the bandages to execute the jutsu front lotus. It was then it happened. He watched Naruto plant his feet on some kind of a black rectangular platform. The blonde boy moved and was facing him. Before he could react, a chakra-enhanced palm thrust met his stomach, which sent him stumbling towards the ground. Naruto descended Lee, gathering chakra in his fist. It was only because Lee had opened the first gate of opening to execute the front lotus. He able to dodge Naruto's attack. Once Naruto's fist hit the ground, he released the chakra that he had gathered. After that a massive explosion erupted, which sent Lee flying backwards into the stone hands and caused the entire arena to be filled with dust. The force of the explosion was so great that Lee was barely able to propel himself back up to the top of the hands and prevent himself from crashing into the wall. Even the match referee Harid was not immune from the effects of the attack, as he was forced to jump up to the catwalks just to get away. What unbelievable power! Just from a single punch, the Chunin examiner thought in amazement. The power of the punch was so great that it created massive shockwave all around the arena, forcing everyone to cover their faces and literally shook the arena walls and ceiling. Oh, here I thought this year's exam was going to be dull, Aiko said, smiling. Is he trying to bring the whole place down on top of us? Karui yelled in disbelief. This is nuts, Omoi said as he tried to keep himself steady from all the shaking. When the shaking finally stopped and the dust around the arena finally settled, the spectators finally could see the state of the arena. where most of them were left completely stunned. In the center of the arena, Naruto stood in the middle of a small crater, while the entire arena floor had been pulverized by the excess shock of his attack, leaving it completely destroyed. "Minato, your son is full of surprises," Jiraiya said with an amused smile. "Minato-kun, did you see it?" Kushina asked, indicating the black platform. "Yes," Minato said. "Never saw something like it before." "Had any of you ever seen anything like it, Sensei?" Jiraiya asked his sensei, the Professor Shinobi no Kami, the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen. "No," the third Hokage answered. He was in a shock seeing Naruto's strength, which was similar to his student Tsunade. "But there is one thing I can tell you, Minato, Kushina, your son has excellent chakra control." "I knew Naruto Nichin was strong, but this is..." Natsumi said but couldn't finish what she was saying. Sasuke's Sharingan eyes flickered with a jealous rage. Seeing the show of overwhelming power was like rubbing salt in an open wound to him. It just showed how powerful Naruto was and how inferior he was to him. Ino was still in shock and was for once in her life at a complete loss for words. Her fellow Genins weren't much better than her. This has to be some kind of nightmare. What the hell has Kaguya been teaching its Genin? If that boy is this strong already, there's no telling how strong he will become in the future, the Iwa Junin thought. How is this possible? Baki thought, who had been completely taken back by Naruto's show of strength. This is certainly going to affect the Hour Plan. Sand siblings had moved from Gaara. "Yes, mother. I know, he is the one. He is the one who will provide me with the battle I seek." This fight has certainly taken an interesting twist, Kakashi says, gaining people's attention. "But I think it is over for Lee." Kakashi slid his Hittite back down, covering his Sharingan eye. The boy's bout with using the front lotus had failed, and it was clear to him that he was currently suffering from intense pain, which would cause him unable to move, along with the injuries from being hit by the backlash of being close to the attack. "What do you mean, Sensei?" Natsumi asked. "The Lotus Jutsu is a double-edged sword." Guy spoke up as he ground his teeth in frustration. Kakashi continued where Guy had left. "It's a forbidden technique. All the high-speed movement causes a strain on the legs and body right now. He must be feeling so much pain, he can barely move, coupled with the injuries and paralysis from the backlash of Naruto's attack." No one could respond to that. It was already clear that Lee was completely outmatched. Guy couldn't help but feel sad for Lee. The boy had never left hope in himself even with his handicap and strived hard for being a respectable ninja. Here was his chance to prove himself as he was pitted against the fourth Hokage who was genius, the best of his generation. During the fight he had surprised all present Genins and Junins and had certainly earned respect from them for his skills. But all his skills paled in front of his opponents who stayed 2 steps ahead of him. He wondered how this match was going to result on his life. Suddenly eyes of Guy and everyone present as they watched Lee stand up and seemed ready to fight with a small smile on his face. "What is going on?" "Lee is smiling," Ino said, completely astonished at Lee's sudden change. Only Guy seemed to understand what that meant. In the next words he spoke shocked. The one-eyed Junin next to him. "The lotus of the leaf blooms twice." Oh. Naruto watched with a bit of surprise as Lee was back to his feet and seemed ready to fight. All his fatigue washed away and all the pain that he was feeling seemed to vanish away. "So he can open inner gate," Naruto thought as this was only explanation. The 8 gates were 8 specific points on a person's chakra pathway system. They limit the overall flow of chakra within a person's body. The gate of openings, the gate of healing, the gate of life, the gate of pain, the gate of limit, the gate of view, the gate of wonder, and finally the gate of death. Those were the 8 inner gates. But there is one drawback. Naruto looked Lee, who was emitting a green glow while his skin had turned red. The inner gates can grant exponentially greater amounts of strength each time one is opened, but with more and more strain on the user's body. It seems as though you are a more than worthy opponent, Naruto-kun. Therefore, I will take this seriously. The third gate, the gate of life, open, Lee shouted, and he began to turn red. Oh. One thing was certain in the minds of all of them. The match had gone beyond the level of a fight between 2 Genins, but now watching Lee ready to open the 8 inner gates, it had just jumped to another level. "I know it's the job of the Junin sensei to decide what to and not to teach their charges, but I will have a word with Guy later to make him understand when such jutsus are to be used," Minato said in a serious tone, Jiraiya and Sarutobi agreeing with him. Kakashi questioned, "How many?" Guy, just how many of the 8 inner gates that kid can open? Guy closed his eyes and showed him 5 fingers. 5 gates, he said. Kakashi looked at Guy like he was crazy. You of all people should know how truly dangerous that technique is. He said that boy has something he absolute values. He wants to achieve his dreams so badly. I warned him of the dangers of what I taught him. He didn't care. He said he was willing to die to achieve that dream of his. That's why I taught it to him with caution. I want to help him become someone who is able to stand up to his beliefs. I had to do it, Guy countered. Kakashi looked very shocked and mad. What are the 8 inner gates? Sasuke asked, as he wanted to know more about Lee's technique. Maybe I can use this technique to kill him. It's very strong technique. If all 8 are opened, the user becomes physically stronger than any human could otherwise manage. For a few minutes, Kakashi explained. Then you drop dead on the spot. Everyone then turned to Lee as they assumed he would attack, but many surprised as his chakra strength kept increasing before he shouted, 4th gate, the gate of pain, open. You have to stop this madness, Guy, Kakashi says, as he didn't want to see the such talented Genin's death for nothing. Oh. Naruto watched with raised eyebrow as Lee opened the 4th gate of pain. While the blood was running down the boy's nose and his severe pained expression, his body was unable to bear the force of releasing the gates. Forget the after effects. Lee charged at him. The speed at which he moved would be something beyond any of the present Genins could hope to follow and would be hard-pressed to see. And then there was the force behind his movement that shattered the ground beneath him. But Naruto was no ordinary Genin, so he was able to block the upward kick from Lee by bringing his hand in an X-shaped pattern. For a split second Naruto just stared at Les, who just stared back at him with those white eyes, which was one of the characteristics one achieves after opening the 3rd gate. A large grin spread across his face as he once again clashed fists with Mini Guy. Naruto couldn't let Lee go any further and let him open the 5th gate. The strain of the 5th gate would kill him. He had decided to stop him. After all, Lee had gained his respect. He pushed Lee away from him and jumped into his shadow. Naruto leaped out of Lee's shadow and kicking him up. He continued to kick Lee up and up, stepping on the shadow platforms. Naruto used the platform to push himself above Lee. He punched him. He again pushed himself under Lee. He kicked him. He continued to beat Lee senseless as he maneuvered himself around Lee using shadow platforms which were appearing and disappearing under his feet. Oh, how is doing it? Kiba asked as he was watching a total beatdown. Hinata had her Byakugan active. I don't know. But those platforms aren't made up of any elemental chakra, she said. She is right, Sasuke said, deactivating his Dojutsu. Shadow. Everyone looked at Shikamaru. What do you mean, Shika? Ino asked. They are shadows. Naruto was controlling shadow. You all saw him jump into his own and come out from Lee's, right? Those moves must be parts of the advanced level shadow manipulation, Shikamaru said. He looked at Naruto. I don't know where he did learn it. Even Nara clan's member can't do it. Ni-chan, where did you acquire such skills? Natsumi thought. Minato, Kushina, you need to talk to Naruto about his new skills, Sarutobi said as he knew such skills couldn't be acquired without any help. He got a nod from both parents. Naruto propelled himself up after Lee, and once he was above Lee he did a mid-air somersault. I'm finishing this fight once and for all, Naruto said. He performed a falling axe kick down on Lee's chest and sent the young boy crashing to the floor. A large shockwave erupted from the crash and just once again filled the air, forcing those watching the fight to cover their faces. Lee Tenten cried when she saw her teammate hit the ground. Once the dust had settled, the spectators saw that most of the arena was now one giant crater surrounded by rubble and with Lee in the center lying on the floor, seemingly unconscious. Soon after, Hari jumped back down to the arena, where he still couldn't believe that all this was caused by two young genin. What a battle, the sickly-looking examiner thought as he leaped at the state of the arena, after which he turned to Naruto to the unconscious Lee lying on the floor, where he couldn't help but marvel at their strength and skill. Regardless of who won this battle, both those boys are something else. But just when Hari was about to declare Naruto the winner, he suddenly saw Lee slowly getting back up onto his feet. Lee's body was shaking, showing that he could barely stand. He was bleeding from his arms, legs and mouth, covered in bruises and cuts. His clothes were torn up and covered in dirt and dried blood, yet despite everything that he went through, Lee was standing up and falling into a fighting stance. No way, Kiba said in awe. It could be. Ino says, shocked. Impossible. Natsumi cried in surprise. How can he stand up after Naruto's attack? Jiraiya said, he was equally shocked. What the hell is this kid made out of? Kushina thought in amazement. How is this possible? Kurtsuchi said. He can't be human. Oh, one should be able to get up after a hit like that. Kankuro stated in astonishment. How can he still be standing? Omoi said. Lee, Tenten and Guy thought in surprise and concern. He opened 5 of the 8 gates, took direct hits from Naruto, smashed through a stone wall and into a stone floor and used the lotus. He shouldn't be able to move, let alone be able to stand up after all that. Kakashi thought in bewilderment. Naruto and Haruhi looked at Lee's face and saw that he was in fact unconscious. He is unconscious? Naruto in disbelief. Even though he lost consciousness, his body refused to give up. The only thing that is keeping him up is sheer willpower, Haruhi thought, who could not help but admire Lee's determination. You have my respect, Lee, Naruto said with smile. This match is over. The winner is Naruto, Haruhi declared. With Naruto and Lee's match was over, the preliminaries were officially finished, but given the state of the arena, Minato could not give his explanation on what was to happen next. Hence Hokage and the other examiners led them to another room. Once everyone had entered the room, Haruhi started to speak. Congratulations on passing the preliminaries. Cough. If you would all come and draw a number from this box. Anko stepped forward and stopped in front of each genin, allowing them to pick their piece of paper. Once all of them had a paper, Ibiki took a step forward and Anko walked away. Please tell me your number, starting with you, Ibiki said, as he pointed at Sasuke, who was at the end of the line. 3. Sasuke said. I've got 13. Akatsuchi said. 10. Kurtsuchi said. I've got 8. Karui said. I have a number 4. Omoi spoke. 12. Temari said. Troublesome. Number 11. Shikamaru said. 2. Kankuro spoke. I have 9. Natsumi stated. 5. Gaara said. 1. Shino said, looking at his number. 6. Neji said. Naruto looked at his paper. My number is 7. Ibiki then held out a clipboard showing the matches. Shino vs Kankuro. Sasuke Uchiha vs Omoi. Gaara vs Neji Hyuga. Naruto Uzumaki vs Karui. Natsumi Uzumaki vs Kurtsuchi. Shikamaru Nara vs Temari. Akatsuchi. Sweet, I got a free pass, Akatsuchi said. You have a month to train before the main matches, Minato says. I suggest you use that time well. Why a month? Shikamaru asked. Because we have to send out invitations for everyone who has to be here to witness the exam, Minato replied. The judges will decide who becomes Chunin and not. Judges? Shino asked. This tournament is judged by multiple judges, Minato said. Myself, Kazekage Dono, Ryukage Dono, Tsuchikage Dono and some of our clients are a few names in it. If someone is decided to have the qualities, in which we believe, declares him fit to be a Chunin, then that person will be promoted even if he or she lost in his or her first match. So, that means we all can become the Chunin, Temari stated. Or none of us, Naruto said. The second exam is finished, Anko barked. Meet in the main arena in a month. Dismissed. Naruto, stay here, Minato ordered. All of the ninjas left the chamber. A few minutes later Kushina, Jiraiya and Hiruzen marched in and stood next to Minato. There were a few minutes of silence as both Minato and Kushina were trying to find words to start this conversation. Jiraiya beat them. Gaki, where did you learn to control the shadows? He asked in his as usual carefree attitude. And why should I tell you? You are not Hokage or my teacher, Naruto said. He absolutely hated the Toad Sannin and had a good reason after what he had done. He was beginning of his every problem, every suffering. Prophecy, my ass. Hey, I'm your godfather, Jiraiya pointed out. Never talked to you in my life, Naruto countered. He had never talked to his so-called godfather before. Listen you, brat, Jiraiya growled. His godson was getting on his nerve. I am a Sannin. I outrank you, Naruto scoffed. Sannin are a bunch of losers who are only gotten famous because one old man decided to be merciful towards them. Why you? Jiraiya's face turned red in anger, but he controlled it by taking a deep breath. Jiraiya, that's enough, the third Hokage said. Let Minato, Kushina handle this. Minato sighed as he knew his teacher had made it worse. Naruto, who taught you the advanced shadow manipulation? He asked. The things you can do with the shadow are impossible even for Nara clan's members, Kushina asked, carefully. Where did you learn it? Suddenly, everyone heard Natsumi's voice as she shouted, what the heck? Let me go. An incredibly huge and muscular man dressed like a shinobi dragged Natsumi inside the room through the closed door. He lifted the Nine Tails container off the ground by her collar. Natsumi was trying to get herself free from the man's garb, but he was incredibly strong. He had caught her by surprise when she had been trying to spy on her brother and parents' conversation. Both Kaguya, Kushina and Jiraiya immediately got in the fighting stance. They had to handle this very carefully as the man had Natsumi as a hostage. He had grayish blue skin and red eyes. Very unusual characteristic for human. But then again, the ninja world filled with weirdo. The example was Kisame Hoshigaki, who had blue skin and gills. "Who are you?" Hiruzen asked. His eyes narrowed. When they didn't get an answer, Minato spoke. "Just let my daughter go. We can solve the matter peacefully." "It is your answer," Naruto said, suddenly. "What do you mean, brat?" Jiraiya asked. He was still angry and the student's son had decided to open his mouth wrong time. The man dropped Natsumi. The red-headed girl fell down on her butt. Minato quickly appeared next to his daughter. Grabbing her, he flashed away while Kushina's sword slashed downward at her daughter's kidnapper. The man simply melted into the shadow, shocking everyone, and came out beside his master Naruto. "Hold on. He is my summon," Naruto said, before they could on any conclusion. "Summon? What kind of summoning animal is he?" Jiraiya asked, smelling something fishy about this. "A very rare one, I think," Naruto answered before looking at Minato. "And you already know that with a summoning contract comes with their special jutsus. Shadow manipulation is one of them." "Where did you get this contract?" Minato asked. "I found on the wave mission," Naruto said, lying through his teeth. Minato looked at his son with a critical eye before he accepted it. If he forced him to tell everything, it would destroy their already fragile relationship. "Can I go, Hokage-sama?" Naruto asked. He couldn't stand another minute here. If his former family wasn't enough, Jiraiya was also there. "Yes, you can go," Minato said. The shadow raised up and wrapped around Naruto and his servant, pulling them down into the floor. After they were gone, Hiruzen looked at Minato. He lit his pipe and puffed at it twice. "Do you believe him?" he asked. "For now, yes," Minato says, "but I'll talk toads." "Probably. They know about his summoning contract." "Nichan has cool summons," Natsumi commented. "You also have a cool summons, Natsumi." "Remember toads," Jiraiya said immediately. "Toads are lame," Natsumi said, folding her hands. "Don't let Gamabunta hear you," Minato says, knowing the chief toad would take it offensively. "Who is Gamabunta?" Natsumi asked. "He is the toad boss. He is big as Hokage Mountain," Jiraiya said, trying to show his summon in a new light. "He helped me fight with the nine-tailed fox," Minato said and looked at his teacher. "And Jiraiya is going to teach you to summon him." "Then maybe they aren't lame," Natsumi said. Oh. Deep inside a dark forest, Naruto stood silently, simply watching work of White Zetsu's clone, who was feasting on a headless body of an Anbu. Two tall men with pointed heads and a single glowing red eye stood both sides to him, protectively clad in black clothing with dark red belts. They had 5 giant, razor-sharp claws instead of fingers. Their legs were also pointed. As if Minato's dogs weren't enough, "Now I have to deal with Danzo's dogs also," he said. His servants, they had not only caught Natsum, but also Danzo's little spy at the outside of the room. "That old warhawk is a pain in the arse sometimes." Black Zetsu rose up next to Naruto. There was silence between them for a moment before the will of Kaguya spoke. "Why do you want to meet me?" "I want you to tell Tobi about my would-release bloodline," Naruto said, shocking Zetsu. "Why?" Oh. The third Hokage and his guest looked at each other momentarily with no words being exchanged between them. After a brief moment of silence between the two of them, he spoke. "Tsunade, it's been a long while." "Yes it has, Sarutobi-sensei," Tsunade replied to her former sensei. She had looks of her late 30s and was known by many as the Sucker, one of the legendary Sannin. She had brown eyes and straight blonde hair that parts above her forehead. Her hair had shoulder-length bangs that frame her face and the rest reaches her lower back. "Where is Shizune?" her teacher asked. "Out, to meet her friends," Tsunade replied. "Tell me, sensei, what's so urgent that you sent this pervert to look for me?" She jerked her thumb over her shoulder. "So you've been aware of me since the beginning," Jiraiya said. "I can sense your lust from here." Jiraiya's face faltered. Sarutobi sighed. "There is something wrong with my teaching. Tsunade is a gambler and heavy drinker. Jiraiya is a pervert and his last student, Orochimaru. I can write a book about him." "Sensei," Tsunade called her teacher. "Wait for a minute, Tsunade," Hiruzen said. There was a knock on door and Minato and Kushina entered the room. Minato smiled. "Tsunade Haim. Nice to see you again, Tsunade," Kushina greeted. "Minato, Kushina, it's good to see you again." Tsunade smiled. "How are your children?" "Their names are Natsumi and Naruto," right? She got a nod from her relative. I really want to meet them. Kushina and her children were the only reason she had agreed to come back to the village. They were her last living family. You will meet them later, but first, Hiruzen said and made a couple of hand seals. The room glowed purple for a brief second. Silencing jutsu? Tsunade said, recognizing the jutsu. So this is serious. Yes, it is, Hiruzen said in a serious tone and motioned Jiraiya to tell her. My spy network in Sand Village has informed me about their upcoming attack on our village, Jiraiya stated. Sand alone don't have enough strength or manpower to do that, Tsunade said, so who are helping them? Iwa Kumo? Sound Village, Minato informed her. They've planned to attack us in the Chunin exams final. Never heard about Sound Village before. Who is the leader? Tsunade asked, looking at the Leaf Spy Master. I suspect it is Orochimaru, Jiraiya said. It's been difficult keeping an eye on his activities. The damn snake knows ways of covering his tracks, and he often relocates from one base to another. There was a moment of silence among everyone in the office. The Senju princess was trying to process all information. She looked at her teacher. You should have killed him. It's not easy to cut bonds you made, Hiruzen said, looking down. Orochimaru was his shame. Greatest mistake in his life. To change the subject, Minato decided to speak. Tsunade-sama, I want you to retake the position of head of Leaf's medical department. Your village needs you. Minato, I don't know if I can do that. In this village, I've very painful memories. I'm sorry, Tsunade said, but I'll help you in the upcoming invasion. It's okay. You have a month to think about it, Minato said. And you and Shizune are staying with us in our clan compound, Kushina said happily. Natsumi-chan will be happy to meet you. What about your son? Isn't he going to be happy to meet me? Tsunade asked. Or Jiraiya is his favorite. She narrowed eyes at her teammate. Did he corrupt my godson with his perverted antics? She clenched her fists, ready to give Jiraiya a beating if Kushina said yes. He doesn't live with us anymore, Kushina said, sadly. Why? Tsunade-sama, there is something I want you to do for me, Minato said as he handed her a file. I want you to perform a physical examination on him. Tsunade looked at the file. It was a medical file of Naruto, her godson. She began to read the file. As she flipped the pages, various emotions appeared on her face. Finally, it settled on anger when she finished. What is this, Minato? Chakra poisoning, blood loss, head injuries, and many more. With all of this, Naruto shouldn't be alive or completely healthy. She turned to Kushina. Kushina, where is your son? Tsunade, calm down. I'm assured that Naruto is alive and perfectly healthy, the third said. He knew an angry Tsunade equivalent to collateral damage. It calmed her down a bit, but she was still angry. Kushina, how did this happen? She asked. It's all started with Toad's prophecy. Kushina started from the beginning. As her story processed, tears began seeping down her cheeks. When she finished, she was literally crying in her husband's hands. He hates us. Tsunade wasn't angry anymore. She was furious. Both of you deserve it, she said, angrily. Jiraiya tried to protect them. Tsunade-hime, it isn't. Shut up, idiot. It's all happened because of you and your stupid prophecy. Tsunade cut it. She turned to both parents. Minato, I thought you were a genius, but you are more idiot than your teacher. And Kushina, you are an Uzumaki. If Grandma Mito was alive, what would she think about you? It's perfectly normal for parents to favor one child or another at one time or another, but both of you just ignored one. You rejected his existing. For what? A stupid prophecy. But prophecy has changed it again. Jiraiya was cut by Tsunade. Shut up, Jiraiya. Prophecies aren't predictions of the future. The slug Sanin shouted. Hiruzen didn't say anything. Minato, Kushina and his student Jiraiya needed to hear that, and Tsunade was the perfect person to tell them that. Tsunade turned towards her teacher. Sensei, where is Naruto? Now I want to check his physical and mental health. There is no way anyone can get up from that accident without any mental and physical ensue. He is training with one of his teachers, Sarutobi said. There is one thing you should know about him. What is it? He can use the wood release like Hashirama Senju. What? Oh. Naruto went through the handshells. Wood release. Tracking Fang technique. Several wooden pillars shot out of the ground and morphed into 5 ninja hounds. The dogs growled at their target before sinking into the ground. His technique name is very similar to Kakashi's, Yamato thought as he narrowly dodged a wooden dog's attack. He jumped back and another wooden burst out of the ground and went to attack him. The third dog came from behind him but was quickly slapped away by a wooden plank. Wood release. wood-locking wall. Wooden pillars appeared out of the ground and created a dome around Yamato, but it turned out ineffective against the wooden dogs as they phased through the wooden wall and bit on Yamato's shoulder hard. Soon another 3 dogs joined him and held him down with their fangs. They are absorbing my chakra, Yamato though, before he turned into the wooden clone, Naruto said. He felt the tip of kunai on his neck. I admit you're good, Naruto, but not that good, Yamato says, standing behind his student with kunai in his hand. Naruto smirked. Sensei, I made 5 wooden dogs, not 4. Yamato's eyes widened as Naruto also turned a wooden clone and the last wooden dog burst out of the ground. Yamato quickly disposed of the dog, but it gave the real Naruto enough time to complete the last hand seal. Naruto clapped his hands. Would release, advent of a world of flowering trees. Yamato's eyes widened in a shock. Several large trees emerged from the ground, turning the training ground into a dense forest in less than a minute. Naruto's technique wasn't finished just there. The trees started blooming into beautiful pink flowers. They were exactly like roses, beautiful and yet deadly. As the flowers bloomed, a thick yellowish mist enveloped the whole field. The flowers had released their pollen that spread through the battlefield. Anyone that inhaled even the smallest amount of it would be rendered unconscious. You have come so far, Naruto, Yamato thought before falling unconscious. When Yamato woke up, he found himself in the same training ground. But the training ground wasn't a training ground anymore. It had become a part of the forest that covered it all side. It looks like, for now, Leaf Ninjas have one less training ground to train. Yamato looked up at Naruto, who was sitting on a tree branch. What did you do with the giant flowers? I cut them off, Naruto said as he jumped and landed softly on the ground. Yamato smiled and said, Naruto, there's nothing I can teach you. Your wood release skills have already suppressed mine. Be careful when you fight with the tailed beast container. Suppressing the power of a tailed beast is no easy task for anyone, regardless of your bloodline limit. Thank you for everything, Sensei, Naruto said. And I'll remember your advice. There was a small puff of smoke. When the smoke dissipated, there was a slug, the same size of a house cat, carrying a scroll under it. The slug was predominantly white in color with 3 blue streaks that ran vertically down the middle and side of its body from its head and tapering off at its tail. Its optical tentacles had a slight tint of gray to them, and it also had 2 sensory tentacles on either side of its mouth. Are you Naruto-sama? It spoke in a soft and gentle voice. Yes, I'm Naruto. And who are you? Naruto said. He pretty much had clues who the slug was. There was only one slug summoned in the element nation. Tsunade Senju. I am Katsuyu. I have a message for you from Tsunade-sama. Naruto was in the hospital. He didn't have a good memory here. The last time, he had visited this place on a stretcher. But this time, he was visiting on his feet. Good progress, he thought. Naruto? A very familiar voice called his name. Naruto turned around to see the familiar face of his pink-haired teammate. It's been a while, Sakura, he said. It's only 15 days, Sakura said. She had several books in her head and was wearing a white coat as the doctor wore. I thought you forgot about me. Trust me, I can forget your face, but not your loud voice, Naruto thought before looking at Sakura. Do you work here? No, I'm actually an intern here, Sakura said. And congratulations, I heard you, Natsumi and Sasuke got into the final. Thanks, Sakura. A voice called her name. Shizune-sensei, Sakura called the newcomer. Shizune was a fair-skinned woman of average height and slender build with onyx eyes and jet black hair. Her hair was straight and shoulder-length with bangs that covered her ears and framed her face. She wore a long bluish-black kimono with white trimmings that held closed by a white obi and open-toed sandals with low heels. Bed number 47 patient needs medical help, she told her. Sakura left after saying goodbye to Naruto. You're Naruto-kun, right? Shizune asked the pale blonde-haired boy, who matched the description of the 4th son. Naruto gave her a nod. I am Shizune, Tsunade-sama's apprentice. She is waiting for you. Naruto followed Shizune. She directed him to the stairs. They made it to the office on the 1st floor. Shizune knocked on the door. When they heard come in, they went inside. Ah, Shizune, Tsunade said. She looked up and saw Shizune and the blonde boy, whom he recognized her godson Naruto. And you must be Naruto. Take the seats. Naruto nodded and took a seat in front of the desk. Shizune sat next to him. Naruto looked the Senju princess. She looked much younger than her age. He didn't know what to think about her. She was his godmother, but unlike Jiraiya, he had never met her before. At that time, his opinion about her was neutral. A physical examination? But why? Naruto asked, confused as he got straight to the point. It is a regular protocol, Tsunade said, lying. Never heard about it before, Naruto said, suspecting something. It's only 4-leaf Genins who has moved to the final. Then where are the others? I have sent them a message. They will be here soon. Naruto narrowed eyes at Tsunade. The whole thing feels suspicious to me. The door swung open and there she was. Hey, where is Grandma Tsunade? Shini-chan? Natsumi, Naruto said, seeing his ex-sister. Perfect timing, Natsumi, Tsunade thought before she realized what that brat had called her. Stop calling me grandma, brat, she shouted. But you're old, Mini Kushina countered. Stop calling me old. Both Shizune and Naruto should drop seeing their behavior. Shizune stood up and decided to stop this pointless argument. Let's go for your physical examination. She grabbed Natsumi's hand and dragged her out of the room. Hey, stop pulling me, Natsumi shouted. Tsunade took a deep breath to calm herself down. She definitely takes after Kushina. She turned and looked at her godson. And Naruto takes after his father. He has Minato's brilliant mind. I hope Natsumi's presence has clarified his doubts about this examination. Are you ready for your physical examination? She asked. Yes, Naruto said. He mentally sent a signal to the shadow servants to keep eyes on the process. Oh, pointless and waste of time. Naruto thought about the physical examination. He jumped onto the roof of a nearby house. Jumping from one house onto another, he was moving toward his home. It was already night. He leapt into the air. He unsheathed his sword Karami. Stepping on a shadow platform, he swung it around, sending an arc of black energy towards an unknown stalker. He looked down and saw marks of splattered ink on the ground. Ink, Naruto said before his form melted into the platform and he appeared in his living room. You can come out now, he said. A man stepped out of the shadow. He was a tall man with black hair. He wore a simple purple lion kimono, bandages all over his body, and simple sandals. His most distinctive feature was an orange mask with a spiral pattern focused around his right eye. Who are you? Naruto asked, but he already knew who he was. Hi, I am Tobi. And Tobi is a good guy, the masked man said in a childish, almost high-pitched voice. I highly doubt that, Naruto said. A chakra chain pierced through the back of Tobi and came out the front. The masked man instantly dropped his childish ways and took a completely different stance. He glanced down, noticing the chain had come out of his shadow. You're full of surprises, Tobi said. His voice was deeper, but there was no pain in it. He stepped forward. There was no remnant of any stab wound or any stabbing hole in his cloth. So you have done playing around, Naruto said, and his chain vanished. So who are you again? Tobi smiled inside the mask. I'm a ghost of the Uchiha, he said with his lone Sharingan glowing. Uchiha Madara. Impossible, Naruto said, emitting a fake shocked expression. You should be dead by now. We're talking about a faraway era. Believe me or not, I am alive. What do you want from me? Let's talk in my place. Before Naruto knew, Tobi was in front of him. As the masked man grabbed his shoulder, the world around them began to swirl. When everything went back to the normal, Naruto found himself in front of a giant, earth and colored humanoid entity rested upon a giant flowering tree. The demonic statue had a decayed appearance, a body shaped into a robe, and a number of spike-like protrusions on its back. The tree it rested on was huge, much bigger than the statue itself. The giant tree had spike-like branches, which jutted out all along its stem, and a gigantic network of roots extending into a massive flooded cavern. An abnormal thing about that tree was its trunk that bore a strong resemblance to first Hokage Senju Hashirama. I can feel Mom's chakra trying to connect me, Naruto thought to look at the husk of the 10 tails. He felt much stronger than before as his chakra became instantly full. Beautiful, isn't it? Tobi spoke. Yes, I can feel its sheer life force from here, Naruto said. Tell me, Naruto, what do you think about this reality and peace? Tobi asked. He needed to know if he was going to coerce the blonde to help him. There is no such thing as peace in this world. That is reality, Naruto said immediately. This reality is completely worthless, isn't it? Tobi said. People don't get what they wish most, and that is a fact. We are subjected to the whims of this reality, that is filled with pain, suffering, emptiness, loneliness and negligence. Whenever there is light, there are also shadows. One cannot exist without the other. This world is full of pain and futility. Those are the only things that exist in this reality. There are only winners and losers in this world, along with the selfish desires to create a lasting peace. But there can be no peace when the world is flooded by rage. The selfish desire of peace will only be temporary and war will rise. Hatred is birthed from the protection of love and more hatred will follow after it like vultures. Everything I have said is nexuses, bound together by an unbreakable chain that keeps adding on to its links. The chain cannot be broken for we all wear it. There is nowhere to break the chain. Normally, Naruto didn't say anything. He stood there and listened. I have the plan to break that chain. I call it, the Moon's Eye Plan, fake Madara said. He began to explain to him his master plan. The plan according to him would bring everlasting peace in the world. Anything you ever wanted would become reality. You can create people, manipulate landscapes, even gain acceptance and love of your parents. Naruto closed his eyes and clapped his hands. Toby watched cheer outstanding when giant trees grew out of the ground. They twisted, turned, wrapped around the huge tree, Hashirama's artificial body. The huge tree began to grow, stretching its branches, sprouting leaves. This is the true power of the wood release, Toby thought. I don't need anything from them, Naruto said. What I want is crush their dreams they work for. This is better than what I expected, Toby thought, smiling under his mask. We can help each other. I will train you. I will give you the power you desire. You will be a force of nature under Uchiha Madara's teaching. But in the return, I expect your help in my plan. Naruto was silent for a minute before nodding. I will help you only if you fulfill your word, he said. Everything had gone according to the plan. He was inside the little group that Black Zetsu had created to their mother's revival. Very well. From today you are my student, Naruto, Toby said with a small smile. The Leaf village is far away from here. Let me give you a lift. Don't worry, I will manage, Naruto said. His shadow wrapped around his body. Toby watched his new student leave through a portal. Another pawn has joined the chessboard, he said. Don't you agree? Black Zetsu rose out of the ground beside. It didn't say anything, just kept an eye on Toby. You are a fool. My brother has always been on the board, not as a pawn but as a queen. That's the end guys. Make sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment letting me know if you want the next part.